Welcome back to The Forge. Another exciting episode of talking about what men need to hear. Have you ever walked past something and hoped someone else would deal with it? Maybe it was garbage lying on the floor. Maybe it was a conflict at work. Maybe it was your marriage. Maybe your child's attitude. Maybe somebody or someone is being treated unfairly and you noticed it. You cared about it, but you just kept walking. Not because you didn't know, because you weren't sure it was your place. And maybe that's one of the greatest lies men believe. Leadership rarely begins when somebody appoints you. It begins the moment you stop waiting for permission. So, Jason, permission is something that men deal with. And as we were talking just off air here, fear often is a big driver behind that. And and hesitation and other things come into play because of those fears. But the fear seems to be one of the biggest driving factors. So, welcome to the show, and yeah, let's dig into this.
Well, it's wonderful to be here. I really enjoy doing these with you and being a permanent fixture in this with you. Yeah, so permission it's it seems like it's simple from the outside. We look at it and say, well, why do I need permission? I could just do what I want. And conceptually, I'm sure that there are a lot of men who think that. Maybe not all men. Maybe there are some men who feel like they do really need permission. Um, and we're going to talk about that as well. But really, what I've found is that the word permission is a substitute for the word hesitation. And that hesitation that is created usually because of one or of two conditions that exists. Maybe both conditions exist, and it creates a really strong break in a person's mentality from ambition to survival or preservation or even just shutdown. And the hesitation, like I said, comes from one of two sources. It's either the fear of doing something for the first time, or it is the hesitation that comes from conditioning. The conditioning of knowing that the last time you did something like this, you were punished and it didn't feel good. And you want to avoid that feeling at all costs. And so now you evaluate everything you do based on that conditioning of fear. And trust me, I know that because I've lived it. I lived in a household where my mother let me know that if I wasn't doing something that she approved of, that there was going to be punishment. That control for her was her parenting method. And there were times where I bucked against that control. She and I sometimes had a great relationship. We also had sometimes a very volatile relationship. And that's because we were both so similar. We both were people who were strong-willed. We demanded that the world bend the knee to us. And there are probably a lot of people who feel that way. It's not arrogance. It is this sense of self that you have, that you know how capable you are. And because of that capability, you expect that there are going to be certain things that happen. And that's fine. Jason, I know that you and I share that kind of sense that we have a strong sense of who we are. And even though we don't always express it, it's there. And having that there and then knowing how to use it as a tool and how to avoid misusing it becomes the dance that we really live. This sense of, I know my worth, I know the value that I can give, and I must recondition myself to taking the opportunities that feel right for me rather than settling for the things that are going to feel like I deserve, or they're going to feel like I am allowed that sense of permission again that I'm allowed to take. And again, it's because of that conditioning. If it's because it's new, well, that's always going to be there. The fear of the unknown is always going to create hesitation. But if you're using that for permission, if you're looking for other people for permission to give you the sense of confidence that yes, you can do that. I mean, in certain situations, it can be good, but overused, it becomes an offloading of responsibility. You're looking for others to bear the burden of responsibility for your choices, and no one else can be responsible for your choices other than you. No one person can expect others to make decisions for them and have their life turn out great. This is called the external locus of control. When you are expecting other people or other events, situations, or experiences to govern your life rather than an internal locus of control, realizing that you are the master of your ship and the captain of your soul. Only you can make the decisions that are going to affect your life, and you have to be responsible and accountable for the decisions that you make.
Yeah, you brought up a whole lot of great stuff there, Jason, and I've felt that as well. And when I think about my life journey, it's taken a lot for me to get to where I am today. And I don't see myself as being fully arrived in where I'm going in life, and what I'm developing in business and within my own personal life and stuff like that. But really, there was a long time of my living in this world of fear of overstepping my bounds in some way, or you know well it, yeah fear that I might get looked at the wrong way or whatever. There's just a lot of things that were just really messing around in my head for so many years, and I didn't really have a good sense of being a person of leadership or whatever, right? In some ways I did, but in many ways I was exporting my sense of permission to be the leader that I could have been or whatever. Like there's a lot of things that I was offsetting, as you mentioned, and and it really, the only time it started to change is when I started really looking at my life post divorce and started saying, you know what, I got to start making some changes here. And from there, I didn't really look for permission from other sources at that point. I came to the point finally on my own where I was like, okay, I got to do something different. I'm going to do something different. And but it was a process for me getting there. And when you mentioned about exporting our sense of the ability to move forward in life and stuff like that, we often are looking to other people in some way. It may not be a conscious thought that we're looking for others to give us permission, but we are in some ways a subconscious way from these fears. We're looking at people like our parents or our bosses if we're working, people from our church or friends or even our spouse sometimes, right? We're looking to these other people to say in some way or give us some kind of signal outside of ourselves that says it's okay to go forward. And that's, I mean, in some cases, there's a certain structure in place and whatever that you do have to go through, but we're talking about non-structural things here where really that hesitation, that fear, all that sort of stuff can really hold you back from moving forward in life.
Well, it can and often does. And when I say permission, I mean, there are some things that are really subtle that act as that permission. Some people call it inspiration, other people use it as permission. So there's one meme or one thing online that I've seen that says that if you you can feel the fear and do it anyway, or something like that. And if you think about it, that can be a statement of permission, because what you're doing is you are looking for some kind of sign to give you the indication that it's time to move. And if you are looking for anything other than what you can provide yourself, you are looking for permission. And that's going to be a hot take that's going to take a lot of people a little bit of time to digest, because they're going to say, well, I make choices for myself all the time. Do you? I mean, we can go, we can go down a huge rabbit hole with this. This leads into a much bigger topic, and I want to keep it at least surface level a little bit. I don't want to go drowning in this ocean of possibility. I want to keep it to the surface. But if you think about it, anything that is not generated from you as your own signal of moving, the tension that's created within, that creates that sense of I've got to move, I've got to do something. Without that, it really is about looking to everything else for permission. And again, I have been there. I have done that. I have looked to others. I have looked at other situations. Hell, I have even looked to astrology, tarot, and psychics to tell me what the hell I should do. It was a moment. It was a phase, but it was one of them. It was a phase that really helped me understand that I had a strong external locus of control. I was letting my outside world dictate my internal environment. And that does not equate, because the outside world doesn't care about your internal environment. It cares about progress, about moving forward, about things happening. And if you're the kind of person who is looking to receive a signal from others of what you should do, you're going to be sorely disappointed every single time. A saying that I like is, the more you expect, the more you can expect to be disappointed. And expectation oftentimes is a result of the paradigms that we create. It's kind of related, but not really related to permission. But permission usually comes about because we have an internal break, B-R-A-K-E, A-K-E. And that break is that pause, that sense of needing to slow down, stop, and assess. And usually it comes about because something is different, or something feels like it is, we're about to violate something that is encoded deeply within us. And so we hesitate, and we feel that tension. And instead of moving forward, we decide that it's too hard. And so for ourselves, we are unwilling to move forward. And so what do? Well, we have two choices. We can either buck up and do it anyway, which is our own permission to move past those illusory barriers that are largely just trying to prevent us from taking unnecessary risks. But all life is a risk. And so the only unnecessary risk is the one that you don't account for, or the one that um you don't accept. Because with every risk, there's always the potential of loss, but you have to be willing to accept the loss that you're going to undertake in order for that risk to be useful. This is true in business, this is true in relationships, this is true in personal growth. You have to be willing to lose something, because until you're willing to lose something, you can't really move forward. So what do we mean by that? Let's take this into let's talk to the people that we really want to target. Men who are husbands. So in a relationship, you and your spouse have different priorities, and the goal is to have those priorities match up enough of the time where you act as one unit moving forward. You both are co-creating your reality. But what if that doesn't happen? What if the reality that you want to create the man who's meant to actually set the goal, what happens when that is being undermined? What if the goal that you have set is she is dismissing and saying, no, we have to do this instead? What happens? Well, you have two choices. You can either assert yourself and say, no, we're moving in this direction. This is what we had said when we first went on this journey together, and we're not changing it now because you understand what the overall goal is, what the end state of moving forward is. You can take the risk of creating that conflict in order to say, this is what we're doing. And yes, that is a risk because you are risking in the back of your mind, you might be saying you're risking the stability of your relationship. And a person who is rejection averse would say, well, if I'm risking that, then she could leave me. Yes, she could. And that is an absolute possibility. But here's the thing, she could leave you for 100 other reasons too, if she wanted to. Why did she stay? What is it that caused her to want to commit to you in the first place? Focus on that. Was it because you are a yes man and you're willing to go along with whatever she wants? Absolutely not. That's a great way to lose a relationship, actually. In every documented case, there's a book about it called No More Mr. Nice Guy. And if you haven't read it, read it by Dr. Daniel Glover. Fantastic book. I strongly suggest that every man read that book if you are finding yourself someone who is denying your own ambitions in order to placate for a relationship. If you are looking for permission to for if you're looking for permission to preserve the relationship, you are not looking to you're not looking to really stand out in that relationship. What you're doing is you're just trying to survive. And if you're surviving, you can't thrive. You can only thrive if you're willing to risk something. Because all thriving, all growth requires risk. And if you think about it, permission, this topic on permission is about the permission to take risk. Well, if we want to keep this really short, I give you permission to take all the risks that you absolutely need to do whatever it takes to further your own ambition, because you need to do that. You have to do that. You have to be willing to take that risk to further your own ambition. Otherwise, you flounder, and a floundering man has no worth.
Yeah, you brought up that book, No More Mr. Nice Guy from Daniel Glover. I've read that book as well. I agree with you. It's a great book. It really destroys the idea of what men who perceive themselves as nice guys are. It really does a good job of destroying what that image is because it really, not that we're going to dig into that, but it basically eliminates the idea that you are a nice guy because there's a lot of stuff going on. Yeah, you're not nice. Um, and I've had to learn that myself. But when I think about my marriage and stuff, you brought up the idea of setting marriage goals or a structure within the marriage unit and stuff like that. That's something that I recognize that I didn't do very well in my marriage, and so when it came to conflicts and stuff like that within my marriage, but I also that played a big role in it because there wasn't our only thing that we had together was we weren't going to get divorced, and here we are divorced. so so obviously there was a lot of things in there that went astray, and and a lot of it, when I look at it from my perspective and I look at it from, the role that I played, because that's the other thing that we want to enforce or want to encourage, through this podcast and our messaging is to take ownership over our part in whatever happens, and not to push the blame or all of the blame or all of whatever to others, right? It's not to say that my wife didn't do anything or my ex-wife didn't do anything to harm the marriage. She did, but I'm taking ownership over what I did and what I didn't do, and And so, when I look at, the areas of my life, when it came to the marriage, I didn't provide a structure for the marriage in many ways. I and I was constantly looking to her, to be honest with you, for permission and how our family structure would work and stuff like that, right? And it's left me even to this day, to be honest with you, with struggles in regards to parenting and stuff like that because of the dynamics of our relationship, and it's been a challenging thing for me to navigate, even for me to this day, when it comes to parenting my son and stuff like that, and it's I'm still learning, and communication is not very strong between my ex-wife and I. That's one of the limiting factors that that I'm struggling with in this. And I'm looking at ways that I can navigate this and everything. But when I look at my life in regards to my marriage and stuff like that, it was run largely out of these fears, out of these hesitations, by me not stepping forward as a leader within the home. And I was looking for these external validation points or whatever to be in this position, or to be in that position of the leader, and it didn't go well. And 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 so uh, and that's one of the reasons why I'm here today with Lifting the Soul Ministries, and with the Forge underneath Lifting the Soul Ministries, here talking to men. It's not because I've got everything figured out, and because I'm not in a marriage relationship now. I'm not don't currently have a relationship with a woman. So I know that when that time comes and I am in a relationship with a woman, there'll be a lot for me to learn as I there's a lot of stuff that I can implement from what I've learned already, but it will be a new learning curve, because when you have two people in that kind of dynamic together, you're learning from each other in a relationship, right? And so there's going to be opportunities for me to grow in that as well, and I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, where I'm going at with this is the reason why I'm talking here today is because I've learned from those things in my life that I didn't do well, and and there's areas in my life where I did do well, and then coming together with Jason here, like the two of us, like we like he's now on his second marriage, and he's still learning in his path as well, and but from the things that we've learned in life, we're sharing from our experiences. And that's where we are taking that step forward. We're taking ownership over our story, and we're sharing with you guys, our audience, so that you can learn from us, from our experiences.
So one thing that I harp on a lot, and that I talk to men about constantly is a word that you brought up a few times, which is responsibility. And even I brought it up as really an essential thing. And you have to be responsible and accountable for the decisions you make and the actions you take. And that's because only you can decide what you're going to do, and then only you can act on that decision. People can't do it for you. They don't have that kind of agency over your life for good reason, because it's your life. And when it comes to taking responsibility, if you haven't done it before, it can feel really heavy. It can feel really daunting. It can feel scary. It can feel like something you want to avoid. And the reason why is because you have to be the one that the buck stops at. And you have to be the one where the the final say becomes. And being the one with the final say can be really scary. It can be really daunting. It can feel really heavy. And that's because when you are acting, you no longer can be an observer. You are deciding what is going to happen with your life, and it's your decision. You made the decision of what's going to happen, and you have to live with the fact that you made the decision. And that's one way you can look at it. You have to live with that decision, or you can look at it as I get to make the decision, and it's really just a a paradigm shift of how you look at it. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. I forget who said that, but it's really great advice. And no matter what happens, no matter whether you are the one who is making the decisions or you're trying to offload the responsibility on others, the hard truth is no matter what happens, you're the one who's making the decision and taking the action. Regardless of whether it is advice from another person or it is a self generated truth that you are acting on, you're the person who's making the decision, no one else. It doesn't matter how many other people you consult or what you do when it comes to collaboration or insight or decision making. It all rests on you. The only person who can make the decision is you, regardless of where you get the inspiration to act. And so to blame anything else other than your decision making, your action taking is absolutely ridiculous because the only person who could ever make a decision for you is you. And the reason why is because you are not an indentured servant, probably. If you're living in the US and Canada, which is our primary audience, you aren't an indentured servant. You are someone who is able to make your own decisions and take your own actions. No one else is is making decisions for your life because you're not incarcerated, probably. You're not institutionalized, probably, if you're listening to this. And you're not in a situation where you are entrusting others to make decisions that are going to impact your life in major ways. You aren't an indentured servant and you aren't a slave. So, because of those things, what you're not, you are the one who makes decisions for yourself. The final judgment, the final action resides on you. And so the responsibility is already there. What you have to realize is that you are responsible for your decisions. And the responsibility that you take or don't is going to be the number one thing that impacts how others see you. More than anything else, your mentality about what you do is going to create more judgment or more what am I trying to say? It's to provide more evidence for other people to decide how they're going to see you. And if you take more responsibility for your life, people are going to see you in a better light. If you take less responsibility, people are going to see you in the worst light. This is just how it goes. And the only person who can make that decision is you. So the responsibility was always there. You just have to wake up to the fact that you are responsible for your choices. No one and nothing else is. Regardless of where you get your inspiration, you have the final say in what you decide and what you do.
Yeah, and responsibility is a big word, right? Like when you think about it, as you mentioned it, when you first start learning to understand the fullness of responsibility and taking responsibility for your life, as you mentioned, it can feel very heavy. And even for those people, that might be, you mentioned that the chances are they're not listening to us because they're institutionalized or in a prison setup. But maybe if even if you are in a space and you got the cognitive ability to understand what we're saying, there's something that you got to take responsibility for as to why you got into the position that you're in. And that's something that that only you can really equate to in your life. But when we're talking about the audience that we're talking to, the men that we're talking to as well, who are fathers, husbands, uh, co-workers, bosses, whatever, taking responsibility is can be daunting. But as you learn to navigate it, as you learn to navigate in a healthy way, there's actually a very big distinction between being responsible for decisions and moving forward in your life and taking action versus control, right? Because it's not our responsibility to necessarily control other people or control everything, because there's a lot of things that we can't control, right? But being responsible for the decisions in and around the events that are happening in our lives, being responsible for the decisions we take for what's happening within our marriage, within our workplace, within our family, all that sort of stuff. We all have that sense of well, stewardship actually would be another good word for it. Stewardship for the way things are going in our lives, and and ownership versus being like totally dependent on others or whatever, right? Like those are words that all are kind of interlaced with responsibility, and and so when we start to live our lives from that perspective of what you were saying, being responsible for the decisions that we make and the path that we're carving forward in our lives, it does overlay into other people's lives. Like if you're being married, right? Like the decisions you make as a husband will affect your spouse, right? And but it's not controlling your spouse. It's not about controlling your spouse. It's about, okay, this is the direction I want to move in, and 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 we're going to go this way, and and you're creating a foundation, and that the more you're able to do that confidently, the more safety and trust that you'll be able to build within that relationship, that will generally allow for those who you are leading to to come underneath you or behind you and follow you, and in many ways also lift you up in that process as well, because I do believe that it's all cyclical. Like if we all are taking responsibility for our own actions and our own decisions, whether we are in a position of leadership or we're in a position of following, we all have the ability to support and build each other up. And I think we're also responsible in some ways to do that in healthy ways, right? Like, I mean, yes, there are people that can have bad decisions and stuff like that, but that's where you have the responsibility. You see something going in a direction, you have a responsibility to say, hey, you know what? I don't see this going in a good direction. What could, let's have a talk about it. We may not, like, you know what I mean? And the person may still decide to go that way, or they may decide to pivot a little bit. And between the two of you or the three of you or whoever is all involved, you may be able to come into a better resolution and actually make something that is going in a bad direction and have it actually go into a good direction and come up with a great result, right? But it takes responsibility for you to say, you know what, this is what I see, and I'm going to voice it. Not that I'm wanting to crush this person's dream or whatever, but I want to help this person succeed and move forward in that, right? Like, yeah, there's a lot like we talked about there too.
And this is where responsibility really comes from. Um, one thing that came to mind after I gave my rant, especially about the people who are our audience, and how people who are If you're not incarcerated, you're not institutionalized, you're probably watching this. Um, it'd be great if people who are incarcerated were to watch this, because back in World War II, there was an Austrian Jew who was um, taken to the concentration camp, and he had a great mind for therapy, and he decided that he was going to make his thoughts his own. He was going, even though the Nazis had robbed him of everything, including his ability to decide what he was going to do, what he was going to wear, how he was going to conduct himself. The one thing they could not take away from him was his mind. And when he got out of prison, even though his wife was executed in the concentration camp, I mean, this guy had every reason to give up on life, and he refused to. He became one of the most notable psychologists and psychiatrists. Even to this day, his work is attributed because of his resilience and his ability to understand the inner workings of the mind. His name was Viktor Frankl. And he one of the best examples of someone who doesn't matter what's going on around you, you get to decide your own thoughts, what you think about, and how you perceive your life. You get to decide. You are responsible for. And every single person who understands their level of responsibility, a switch gets flipped. And it literally is a switch. It happened with me. And it felt like someone had turned on a light. And that's the best way that I could describe it. It was one of just this moments of like clarity. Oh, look at that, an epiphany. And it was the fact that no matter what you choose, whether you choose to be active or choose to stay passive, you are making a choice, and that choice has an outcome. And this is something I need everyone to really understand. So I'm going to say it again. No matter what you choose, whether you choose to be active or you choose to be passive, you are making a choice, and that choice has an outcome. And when you understand that no matter what you do, an outcome is going to follow, a circumstance is created that you are contributing to, either by being passive or being active, you begin to understand that everything that you do contributes to your life, the language that you use, the positions that you take, the posture that you have. They begin to really, you begin to understand how they broadcast how you see yourself, the identity that you have, and the ways in which you interact with others. People pick up on those, and that gives them the clue and the cues of how they should respond to you and how they should treat you. You're basically broadcasting with everything you do how other people should respond to you and how they should treat you. The more passive you are, the more people are going to treat you as a passive person. The more active you are in your decisions, the more people are going to treat you as an active person. And activity breeds respect. When you
Yeah.
decide that you're going to take an active role in your responsibility of what you do, when you decide that you're going to have the responsibility and choose to be held accountable for what you do, it changes who you are fundamentally. It changes everything about you, and it changes your outlook on life. It changes the way that other people see you. It changes the way that you see the other people in your life, including your spouse, your children, your coworkers, and your friends. It changes everything. And in that change is opportunity. You have an opportunity to decide how they're going to interact with you by deciding how you interact with yourself through your responsibility and your accountability.
Something that was coming to mind for me while you were speaking there is this idea of faith without action is dead. And and so that's something that we're, when you're talking about being passive and stuff like that, so many people, especially in the faith community, and stuff like that. They talk about, when we're talking about areas of permission, people talk about praying about a certain situation. Oh, I'm going to pray about that. I'm going to pray about that. And then they fall apart, or they fall away, and they end up not doing anything about it. And it's a very passive way of doing things. And so, yeah, I'm all for prayer. Don't get me wrong. I do believe in prayer. I do believe prayer works. But as the saying goes, faith without action is dead. And so I have a question for you as my audience. Like, who have you been waiting for to give you permission? And what if the fact that you notice the problem is the permission you need to move forward in life, to make that change, to address an issue in your marriage relationship? These are things that you and I, Jason, have been talking about from the beginning, since you and I have been working together, is this idea of having that responsibility and making those decisions and not waiting on others. Right? When we take ownership over the things that are going in our lives, we have the ability to make a difference. We may not do it perfectly right every time. That's part of the learning curve. As part of taking the risk that you've talked about often within this episode itself, right? Like, you got to take that risk because you know people are worried about failing. What if we remove the word as failure or failing as and look at as a learning opportunity? It's feedback. It's a less exactly, and so we can temper those feelings. I mean, those feelings do come up. I mean, Jason and I, we do feel them still to this day. I mean, I think about, you know, stepping away from the security of my 9 to 5 job, right? And then moving into developing, lifting the soul ministries and working towards building a platform that will serve men and help men become stronger leaders in their homes, in their communities, in their places of work, to help keep the family unit knitted together. Because I truly believe, and Jason truly believes as well, that the societal structure is foundational on the family unit. And we've seen nothing but the destruction of the family unit for years. And none of us are immune to that. But it starts with us taking responsibility for our decisions, starts by taking responsibility for our actions, and making a choice and being active in that choice. Because by not making a choice, that's also a choice. And that leads to the passivity that Jason was talking about. And so, would you rather be in a space where you're actively making choices and learning from the good and the struggle that comes along with those choices? Or are you going to just sit there and be passive? Because, and this is one of the things that I also learned. I didn't, yes, looking back at it, I did learn a lot, but I didn't learn as much being passive as I could have learned if I was more active.
And really, when it comes to responsibility, there are two simple things that you can do that help you take responsibility and be more accountable. The first is setting boundaries. I think that every single talk that we do is going to come back to setting boundaries. This is probably the single most important thing that men can do is set boundaries. And then utilize discomfort as data. And the discomfort comes from boundary violation. Not from the displeasure of others, not from other people convincing you that you did something that wasn't great because was it affected them, maybe not intentionally, but I mean, no matter what you do, you're always going to affect somebody in a way that you don't want to. That's something you can't get over. Someone is always going to be displeased by a decision that you make. And this is why external the external locus of control is so dangerous. Because if you try to please everyone, you're going to please no one. But if you focus on your own goals, setting a boundary, and then focusing on the feeling that takes place, the discomfort that you feel when that boundary is violated or when that boundary is disregarded, when it's trampled over, using that as data of how to improve yourself moving forward, that creates positive growth. And it increases your ability to take responsibility and be accountable to what is important, namely the boundaries that you've created, and understanding why those boundaries are important. So, those are two things that you can do that will instantly increase your likelihood of taking responsibility and holding yourself accountable for things that you do.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about boundaries, and we've even done a particular podcast on boundaries itself, and that is such a foundational part of I think any relationship, and when used properly, and stuff like that, they actually boundaries can build a bridge for you in the relationship, right? There's still that sense of protection and stuff like that. But it's meant to be a proper boundary will actually allow for a bridge to happen if it's exercised properly and used properly. And so, when I think about everything that we've been talking about today and stuff like that, like, uh, yeah, like there's so much involved in that. But really, I think the thing that we really are hitting home with today is the idea of responsibility and ownership, and understanding that you don't necessarily need external permission from others to take action. Those fears, that those points of life where you want to hesitate and stuff like that, yes, those are natural feelings. But there's something that you can do to move past those things. And the more often you exercise those things, the easier it becomes to move forward and take action and to do things. And the more, it's like anything. It's like learning to play an instrument, right? You don't just pick up an instrument and start playing it right away and have, there are gifted people out there that can do those kinds of things, but more often than not, even the gifted people have to go through the process of practicing their instrument, practicing their craft. Doesn't matter what it is, right? Like I've been playing the role of an electrician for coming up on 30 years now, and I'm still learning things from that trade all the time, and stuff, right? Like there's still things that I have to practice to keep my skills up good as a tradesman. Learning to become a speaker, a person who speaks into people's lives. I have to practice being in front of the camera, being in front of people, right? You learn by doing. And so it's the same thing when it comes to, being a leader in your home, being a leader for your family, being a leader in your workplace, being a leader in your community. You have to take steps forward. Take those steps forward in exercising those leadership skills that are there. They just have to be worked and muscled a little bit to get there. And that's something the only way to do that is to step out of your comfort zone and get into that area of discomfort that Jason has mentioned as well. And and being in that and being okay in that space of discomfort, because the more you exercise into that space of discomfort, the more easier it will get. And then there'll be another layer to it and another layer. And that's okay, because that's what the growth curve is. It's about building. It's about, you know, a lot of people use the idea of exercise, building muscle. Well, if you want to build muscle, you got to lift weights. And eventually you start off with 5 pounds, and then you go to 10 pounds, and then you go to 20. And next thing you know, you're bench pressing like 150 pounds or 200 pounds, right? But you got to start somewhere. And it's the same thing with leadership. It's the same thing with any part of your life. It's the same thing with communication with your spouse. If you have a hard time communicating with your spouse because it's uncomfortable, well, you got to start somewhere. So open up the dialogue, right? Take that first step.
Absolutely. And really, when it comes to taking that responsibility, when it comes to being accountable, there are just some questions that you can ask yourself that will help you understand how well you're doing. One of them is, am I waiting for permission or exercising? And when you exercise permission, that means that you are giving yourself permission necessary to do what you need to do. And one way that you can ensure that you are exercising permission rather than waiting for it is notice where you're hesitating and why. Sometimes you hesitate because it's not for you, and that's fine. And if that's the case, the sooner that you can identify it, the sooner that you can abandon that train of thought, because it's not for you. It is not helping you in any way. And understanding that is good. The more you understand it, the better you are at being able to pick up the things that are for you. When you understand what it is you want broadcasted, let other people know what your intentions are, what you plan on doing, and then act on them. And don't wait for permission. Just act. Just do it. Because the more you do, especially when what you're doing is working towards a common goal or working towards something really, really good, the more you do that, the better your position will be, the better you will be able to do the things that are going to excite you more and that are going to give you the sense of confidence that you are on the right path. And it's also going to have other people support you as well. The more confidence you show, the more support you get. The more responsibility you have over your life, the more support you get. When you are responsible, accountable, and you are communicating your vision well while holding your responsibilities, you become a force of nature. Very little can stop you at that point. And the thing that I want for men like you, the thing I want for you is to become an unstoppable force. For good, of course.
So this is what we are going to do. Jason and I are going to challenge you for this week. We want you to identify one area where you've been waiting for someone else to take the lead. And within the next 48 hours, we want you to take one concrete action. It doesn't have to solve the problem. It simply needs to move it forward. And then afterwards, ask yourself this question. What changed in me when I stopped waiting?
If you want to really supercharge this and make it even more real, put that in the comments. Put whatever it is that you are looking to do, put that in the comments. Jason and or I will make sure to hold you to it. We will We will reply and we will follow up and find out how well you did. I mean, of course, there's going to be a limit to how many we can do that, but for at least the first few that come, and we will make sure to get back to you and ask you how well you did. What how well did you succeed? What kind of feedback did you get? And that might be the thing that helps when you write it down, especially when you write it down and make it public. You're more likely to follow through as long as it is important to you, as long as long as it is something that you feel is worth your time and worth your energy. So yeah, make a statement, put it in the comments. Let us know what it is that you want to achieve. And then 48 hours, let us know how well you did.
Yeah, by all means, connect with us in the comments. And there's other ways you can connect us with us as well. If today's conversation has exposed places where you've been waiting instead of leading, you're not alone. Every man wrestles with hesitation. And here at the Forge, we exist to help men strengthen that permission switch together, encouraging one another to step into responsibility before fear has the final word. And you can do that not only by liking and subscribing to this channel and which obviously helps promote this channel, but you can also share this channel with others in your community, within your family, those who you feel could use this message today. And you can also check us out at our website, www.liftingthesoulministries.com. There you'll find out what's going on with what we're leaning towards, what we're building, as we are building a greater program. Jason's got his bold program that he's been working on. He's written a book that is a great book for you to check out. And Jason, just for the audience sake, what is the title of the book?
It's called The Leading Man, a practical guide for men to grow to lead with strength and vision.
Yeah.
And really, it's all about understanding what it is that causes men to hesitate from leading and what causes men to lead and why men are the best human to lead. What is it about men that makes them be able to lead in an expressive way? Men and women lead very differently. And male driven leadership, masculine leadership, expressive leadership is really things that move the needle forward for people, groups, and even civilizations. They're the things that allow people to move forward. Feminine or receptive leadership is something completely different, and that's a topic for a different time. But understand that you as men are meant to lead in an expressive way. It is what you were literally built for, and the book helps to describe that. And I'll make sure that the link to that book is in the show notes as well. So anyone who wants to check it out can.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason, for sharing that. And also, we have men's breakfast coming up on September 26th. That will be held in the Sundre area, which is in Alberta. So I know we have a more international audience, but if you are somewhere close to that and you want to join us, we'll have a link to the event in the show notes as well, because we'd love to be able to connect with you in person and and also yeah, we want to be able to connect with you in ways that that you can that we can serve you better as an audience. So you can also email us at info.liftingthesoulministries or info@liftingthesoulministries.com, where you can connect with us and and that, yeah, that's a great way for you to reach out to us and get more information about what we do.
Well, I don't know
So
about you, Jason, but I think that's pretty much a wrap. I think we've talked about everything that we can. We've beat this horse to death.
yeah, we have. And so just one final thought as we close this out is that leadership rarely begins with a title. It rarely begins with applause. Most often, it begins with a quiet moment when you realize something needs to change, and you decide that walking away is no longer an option. The world doesn't need more men waiting to feel ready. It needs men who are willing to take the next faithful step, even when confidence hasn't caught up yet. Because I believe that God has entrusted each of us with the relationships we're in, the responsibilities and opportunities. The question isn't whether you'll notice what's broken. The question is what you'll do once you do. So this week, stop waiting for perfect certainty. Stop waiting for someone else to go first, and let awareness become ownership, and let ownership become action. So thank you for joining us. Until next time, bye for now.